And exhale. Episode 187 of the Light the W podcast. Hello and welcome. Recording the Sunday, July 26th, 10:45 p.m. We had a big week ahead of us. There's a lot to look forward to, a lot to think about, a lot to talk about, and we're just going to quickly start there before we get into this episode. So, plan for the week. Obviously, big trade goes down, emergency podcast, all of that as per usual. That will all happen. Very likely what would happen if the Mariners make a big trade is emergency podcast, which is mostly just going to be a reaction, and then we'll have more full-fledged, thoughtful one the day after, just to be able to sort of get both sides of that sort of thing. And sort of how it'll impact the team will be in both, obviously. But they got to make a trade before we can even do that. Other than that, this will release Monday morning. Of course, as usual, we'll also have the normal Wednesday episode and Friday episode. But we have a surprise little Tuesday episode with a wonderful guest that you will have to listen to find out who it's going to be, where we discuss the Dodgers series and we look ahead to that, which is a massive middle of week series for the Mariners, who haven't beaten the Dodgers since April of 2021. So it is going to be a big challenge, and the Mariners need to be playing their best baseball in that series in order to come away with even just a singular win at the legendary Dodger Stadium. But before we can get into that, we got to start with what we're at and where we're at right now. And, earlier in the day, I was thinking, I got some notes down. There's a lot of stuff we could talk about, from the build of this roster to Julio to, the ownership. There's so many things that I was prepared to sort of just rant about and talk about. And then things changed. And I wasn't able to watch a whole lot, if at all, this weekend. I watched maybe 3 innings of the 3 games. In total, I watched maybe 3 innings. And, you know, I don't have a whole lot to say about it other than it was frustrating. This team has not been playing great baseball. They looked asleep. They looked like they didn't want to be there. They looked like it was the 10th game of a 10-game road trip, and they were just wanting to leave the ballpark and get on the road and get on the plane and get out of wherever they were and get out of Texas, I guess in this case. They looked like they didn't have the ability to put a foot on the gas pedal. It was, you're pushing all the way down on the brake pedal. There was no movement, there was no energy. From what I saw and from what I heard, there was no movement, no energy, nothing. Right? It was stagnant. It was bad. It was more of what this team looks like prior to the break. And for those who listen on a regular basis, coming out of the break, I was feeling really positive. I went to a couple games. I was feeling the vibes. I was feeling the energy. I was feeling this team like they were about ready to turn a corner. And then they head to Texas, and I'm like, huge series. It's a huge moment in this season. This is going to be a massive moment for the deadline, massive moment for the division, right? And even with how open the division and the AL is, like, there was a real possibility that the Mariners changed the way that their season was, either for positive or negative, based on what they did in this series. And after games 1 and games 2, it was not good. You were then 2.5 games back of the Rangers. You were in third place in the division. And that's when it was like, oh boy. It was a panicking moment. I don't think I personally realized how close the Astros were on the butts of the Mariners in the division. I don't think that was something that I really counted for. They're a half game back right now. And seeing them in third place and seeing them playing bad baseball and seeing how low the energy was and seeing how frustrated people were, it was disappointing. And I don't even know if it was necessarily anger or frustration on my part, as more as just disappointment. And they go into today's game, Sunday's game 3 of the series, 3 or 4, and you needed today to be able to even salvage a split, the potential of a split. You needed today's game. but you more so even just needed it to just take a deep breath, and as I started this episode, be able to just exhale. And it felt like they hadn't had a moment to just exhale. It was, we're getting punched in the face first inning of the game. We're making defensive errors. We're making mental errors. We're seeing 6 pitches from Jacob deGrom in the first inning when he's been one of the worst pitchers in the first inning of any starting pitcher in baseball. The approach is there. We don't want to be here. Like, that's what it felt like, right? And that's frustrating and that's enraging. And people are yelling, this team needs to sell, this team needs to trade their pieces, this team doesn't have what it takes. And I understand those sentiments. I do. I really do. But I'm going to push back against it. No matter what happens on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, this team needs to add. Now, you can add rentals or you can add controllable pieces. And you can argue for either way, or a mix of both. And whether or not this team is in it or not, I think you can make the argument for both. Because you need to improve this team to have a shot here in 2026. And you need to improve this team in the future. Randy Arozarena is going to be a free agent. JP Crawford's going to be a free agent. Right? Those are big pieces of this team, especially Randy Arozarena, that you're going to have to be able to replace. Right? Now, you've had the breakouts of Cole Young. You've had the breakout of Dom Canzone over the past 12 months. But you have a lot of holes on your roster. And to me, I look at this deadline now, and would it ever make sense for this team to sell? No. What do they have to sell? Randy? That's it. Nobody wants JP. Nobody's going to want Castillo. None of that makes sense. Now, maybe you could toe between the lines, but this team should buy. And they're going to buy. And you should be excited about them buying. Because you should be excited to watch this baseball team. You shouldn't not want to watch this team. You shouldn't be frustrated to watch this team. You shouldn't be fed up watching this. You should want to watch your baseball team play. When you were 8 outs away from the World Series for the first time in franchise history last year, with a catcher who hit 60 home runs, a generational season, with what seemed like one of the best young players a few years ago, coming up a future potential MVP candidate that hasn't necessarily panned out to that in Julio Rodriguez. And look, I think that this season, alongside 2024 and 2023, all show that this team is lacking a star a little bit. You look at 2022, Julio Rodriguez was unbelievable in his rookie year. He looked like a star. And you look at 2025, Cal Raleigh was a star. This team feels like it needs someone to be a star in order to be the team they need to be. And that could be on the pitching side, that can be on the hitting side, either way. But they haven't been able to add a star on the free agent market, really, on the trade market, of course. They've added good players. They've added great, pieces to this roster. Randy Arozarena was a great add to this roster. Josh Naylor was a great add to this roster. Gino Suarez has been a great add to this roster a couple times. But they have failed to add a great player, a star, a top player in the game. They just don't have that. Now, Julio Rodriguez looks like that for stretches. And if he can do what he wants to do in August, what he normally does in August, this team can have a good month, and this team can go on a run, and this team can do the things that we've been talking about them doing all season. And maybe the shot in the arm that they have been seeming like they needed the entire season was today. Maybe the shot in the arm has been actually the past couple days. Getting punched in the mouth by a team that you know is worse than you. By a team that you know you're better than. At least on paper, that you believe you're better than. You've gotten punched in the mouth. You've gotten kind of cakewalked. And you're getting cakewalked again in Game 3. What looked like it was going to be an easy series win for the Rangers. But Dom Canzone, our guy, we are a Dom Canzone podcast, comes through with a massive moment. He fires the guys up in the dugout, And it just felt like a pressure had been lifted. It felt like a weight had been lifted, and this team had been needing that. Now, I'm not saying this is going to turn their whole season around, but it has to feel like it could. And it has to start tomorrow. And it has to start just game by game. This team just needs to slow down, relax, and play it game by game, pitch by pitch, inning by inning. They have the capabilities, they have the guys, they have the talent to go and be the best team in baseball. Add a couple more pieces around this team, a bullpen arm for sure, a right-handed bullpen arm for sure, and maybe even another lefty and a bat or two. And you can change his bench a little bit. And this team can be different. This team can win in different ways if you add the right guys. Jake McCarthy. And this team can go on a run and be the team we all want them to be. But they gotta just relax. It feels like that pressure is getting to them. They're feeling it. They're not able to perform under it, and they need to figure out how to perform under it. They need to be able to perform with the pressure of being the best team. There is the expectation and pressure to be the best team in the American League, and they haven't been able to live up to that. Now, can this home run change that? Can today change that? Can Munoz just be in nails lately change that? I think it can. But you got to make tough decisions. The 6-man cannot last any longer. You need another arm in your bullpen. You need to make the trades. You need to IL guys if they are hurt so that they're healthy when they are playing. You need to have serious conversations about the future of Dan Wilson as the manager of this team. You need to add the right-handed reliever that you've been needing since you traded Paul Sewald. Not that that was a bad trade. I would do that trade again. You need to build a complete roster that involves bench guys that can run and steal bases and play defense. You need Julio to figure out how to be the star you expect him to be, and you need Cal to be the good bat that you expect him to be. He doesn't need to be the 2025 Cal. He can be 2024 Cal. And you need to prove that 2025 was not an outlier season. Because there is that possibility. Julio needs to prove that he is the star that he looked like he was going to become in 2022. Because he hasn't been able to prove that. These things all can happen. None of these things would shock me when they happen. And I think that Jerry Dipoto, Justin Hollander look at this Dom Canzone shot in the arm and they say, hey, this is now. This is go time to make this trade. And they're going to be working the phones, trying to get something done on Monday before this Dodgers series so that they can complete this roster a little bit more, so that they can supplement it, so that they can continue to get shots in the arm. You got one. How about another one? How about another one? Couple more shots in the arm. This team gets lifted back up. This team gets to the place it wants to be. And we are talking about the Seattle Mariners being the team we want them to be once again. All right, we all want them to succeed. We all want them to be that team. Right? And again, they haven't been far off all year. It's a mentality thing, and it's a guys performing thing. And it seems like they're lacking some leadership. Can Dom Canzone step into the leadership and fire these guys up? That's what they need. Some of these young guys to have their voices come through and say, you know what? This isn't good enough. Let's go. This team is good enough. We're all good enough. We believe in each other. Let's go prove that we're the 2026 Seattle Mariners who make history. Let's do it. All right? Let's freaking do it. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, we're going to have episodes Tuesday and Wednesday. And of course, if they make a trade, we'll also have an episode there. But thank you guys so much for listening to episode 187 of the Light the W pod. As always, go Mariners. Go get Mason Miller, and peace.